If I didn't know it was mid-February, I'd think it was springtime. It's beautiful out here at the lake today. Bright blue skies, the sun is warm. I'm out here doing a little maintenance on the boat, had to put some fuel in, charge some batteries, stuff like that. But this warm weather has got me thinking about spring fishing and some of the challenges that come during that winter to spring transition. I know a lot of guys struggle then, but it can be a very rewarding time to chase trout. So I thought I'd go over it a little bit, discuss it, maybe give you guys some tips that are going to make you more successful as we transition from the winter months into the early spring season. Now, what makes that transition take place? Well, primarily it's lengthening days and rising water temperatures, okay? As the days get longer, the water temperature comes up. That means the fish start moving around more. They're burning more calories. They have to eat more. Therefore, they are easier for us to catch. But it's never that simple because there's a lot of other factors, swirling around that can either make for really good fishing or very difficult fishing. Let's dig in. Let's start with some talk about temperature, some talk about presentations, things like that. Okay, let's say it's the first week of March. You hit the lake. What are you going to pull? You want to troll. The lake is full. The water temperature, maybe it's hovering right at 49 or 50 degrees. You can catch fish trolling at this time, but you've got to be ready to adapt throughout the day. The best days are going to be days that have very little wind and bright blue sunny skies like I have today. You're going to have to start out slow. Typically in the morning, you're looking at a slow presentation. This is some of the stuff that I pull early in the morning. I'm going to have to reach for some stuff here. Of course, first and foremost, I'm going with my soft plastics. I'm going with the Trout Trix worm. I'm going with the Trout Trix minnow. I'm rigging these with the action disc, running them naked, no blades, no flashers, no nothing. You're getting line. You're gaining line.
I'm losing line. This boy's pulling drag.
Just keep reeling. Just keep reeling.
I'm reeling, but he's a good one.
Oh, he's a good one. That's a good fish.
Now I'm nervous. See.
Now you're nervous.
What are you nervous about?
Yeah, you've got big fish.
The nervous part was trying to get one to bite. This is a nice fish, guys.
Don't forget, news at 6. You'll be on news at 6. Keep cranking. Just keep cranking.
Just nice.
How much leading do you have on there?
About 25 feet. 25 feet, son. You stay right there.
I'm going to take drag?
Yeah, well, let him take drag.
Oh, yeah, he's taking it.
Woo!
There you go.
He's taking it.
Now, guys, the drag is light. The drag is light. I keep the drag light because sometimes we catch big fish. Every once in a while, we land one. Actually, we land almost all the big fish. So we're just going to wear them down. We're out here in open water. Nothing to worry about. I mean, I've done my job. It's up to this guy now.
Yeah. I put you on the fish. Now you... I saw a nice big flash.
He's way over here.
You're good. You're good.
Oh, there he is right there.
Oh, look at that.
Look at that
Oh,
dude.
shit.
Look at the tail on him. That fish has been in here for a long time.
There you go, Luke. No pressure now.
No pressure now.
No pressure now.
Trout Trix worms, guys, they are a game changer. They really work.
Ready?
Keep going, Luke. Keep
Easy,
going, Luke.
easy.
Keep reeling,
He's
Luke.
gonna take off again.
Keep his head down.
If he does that, but yeah, tip down. When he comes up to thrash like that, you did the right thing. When they come up to thrash, tip down, get him back under the surface. He's tired.
He's wanting to lay over like a big log.
Come on, Betsy. All right, right to you. Ooh, that's a good fish.
Oh, happy days, Luke. Look at that.
So, you know, that's you can't teach this. You guys are experienced fishermen. I tell so many people, You gotta be patient.
Yep.
That's 6-7 pound fish, maybe more. And look at that square tail on that fish. Trout tricks in his mouth, but bam, that's a big fish. I'm also gonna throw a grub out there. I'm gonna get a grub in the water. Now, I may or may not team the grub with a flasher or a very small dodger. I'm going to slather these with scent, and I'm going to run at, anywhere from maybe 1.5 to 1.8 miles an hour. I'm going to work slow. I'm going to work fairly shallow, top 10 feet of the water column. You may well see fish holding deeper than that throughout the day, not just early in the morning, but more likely than not, those deeper fish aren't going to be active. If you encounter fish in the top 10 feet of the water column, those fish are likely to be active. They're likely to be ready to go. Another great offering early in the morning and early spring are gulp worms threaded on a slow death hook or a natural night crawler also threaded on a slow death hook. I won't demonstrate how to thread a night crawler. There's several videos here on the channel that demonstrate that, how to put those worms on a slow death hook. Now, if your water clarity is okay, you can certainly run these naked, but all in all, I think you're better served to run them with a small dodger or one of my turbo flashers. I really like the turbo flashers. I like them in orange. That's a great color. Come in a variety of colors, but for spring fishing, I really like that orange polka dotted one right there. I think I have one of my little dodgers here as well. Yeah, here it is. All-time favorite spring dodger is my mini willow leaf. Both of these are awesome for pairing with the gulp, pairing with grubs, and pairing with threaded night crawlers. If I'm using the mini willow leaf, I'm probably going to put that worm anywhere from 16 to 24 inches behind the blade. Remember, little blade like this is just kind of your business card. This just kind of draws fish within range. They see the worm or they see the gulp, they taste the gulp, they smell the gulp, they taste the worm, they smell the worm, and it's game on. Same thing with the grub. If you're running a grub, you want to slather that thing in my trigger scent. They're going to come in, they're going to get a little taste, they're going to get a little whiff of that scent, and it's going to be game on. Same thing with the turbo flasher. You don't need your bait, crowded right up behind the turbo. Again, anywhere 16 to 24 inches behind that. This is your business card. They're going to feel that vibration. They're going to move in. They're going to see that color. They're going to see the flash from that rudder. And then they're going to pick up on your actual offering. They come in. They're going to like to smell. They're going to like to taste. It's going to be fish on. So those are kind of offerings, I'm going to run from when I first get on the water until 10:30 in the morning, something like that. Every day is different. But again, we're assuming that we're out on a day when we have little wind and we have a bright blue sky. Now, you should be watching your sonar unit closely. I'm going to throw these down on the seat here. You should be watching that sonar unit closely. When you start to see the temperature start, climb a little bit, when you see it increase by a degree or a degree and a half, you can speed up a little bit more. You can keep running those same offerings, but you can break out some spoons and you can break out some trolling flies. Okay, I'm back. I had to hunt down the spoons. So since we're just, we're increasing the speed a little bit, you're probably not going to reach for your speed spoon. You're looking for something a little subtler than that, something that you can run at a slower speed. Trigger Spoon Jr. is a great choice, as is the Pinhead. I don't think he's a monster, but he sure bent that rod. Ooh, he's fighting. Look at those head shakes. Oh my God. Oh, that's awesome. Dude, we've just been wailing on him on the Pinhead today. It's just working. We're up here on a shallow mud flat. Ton of little shad out here, and the trout are pouncing on it. See how big this guy is. Oh, nice fish. Nice. Another good fish on the Pinhead right there. That one was all chrome Pinhead. Another fish on the Pinhead, on the chrome Pinhead. I don't think that was a minute, guys. Maybe a minute. Might have been a minute. I mean, I just got it back out there, and oh, that's a nice fish. Oh my. Oh, buddy. That's a good fish. Holy moly. Gotta like it. Lead core, hybrid rig, pinhead, 8 feet deep. I'm sweeping it right across the bottom here, guys. They're feeding on small shad, and we are smoking them. There we go. Woo! Yes! Oh man, look at that rainbow. Dude, that's the presentation right there. Awesomeness. What a husky fish. That fish is all of 3 pounds. You can run these anywhere from 1.8 to about 2.2 miles an hour. You can run them a little faster than that, but at that speed range, they work very well. Very effective spoons. And this is also the time of day when you want to get a metalhead trolling fly into the spread. Now, a lot of different colors can work in the spring, but if you've watched the channel very much, you know I really lean towards the bright colored stuff. I like the bright colors. I like the vibrant stuff. I like that bright pink. I like the bright orange, combinations of those colors, the sunburst color. We're pulling the metalhead, guys, down 10 feet. And look what Robin got. Big old 6-pound rainbow right there. Awesome. Awesome. Way to top off the day. Get a metalhead in your spread too. That very often is going to be the fly that catches the biggest fish of the day. I've seen it so many times. You know, you'll be catching fish on a variety of offerings, but when the big fish comes knocking, it comes knocking on that metalhead trolling fly. So I've kind of taken us through the early morning hours, the late morning hours. Now let's say we're getting on into the afternoon. We've caught some fish. The fish appear to be getting more and more active. Spring, early spring, is the one time of the year when I really like to pull minnow plugs. For whatever reason, I find that in the early spring, in the early part of March, I do really, really well on Yozuri L minnows and the small countdown Rapalas. Nice fish on the Rapala.
And he's staying on.
So far, so good. That's another big fish. He's bigger than he looks. Big fish on the Rapala. He's not as big as the other one, but he's big. He's big enough. Big enough. Oh, that's a nice fish, Rapala King. He's on that blue Rapala. There's the second Rapala fish, guys. Very solid rainbow. Again, you can bump your speed up. You can bump your speed all the way up from, 2.2 all the way up to 2.5, 2.7 miles an hour. Again, you're keeping your stuff shallow. You're keeping your offering shallow where the most active fish are. But as that water temperature rises, those fish are hungry. They haven't been eating a whole lot throughout the winter. Their fat reserves are down. Now they're moving around more. The temperature's rising. They're really starting to feel their oats. And that is one of the times of the year that I really like to bust out those minnow plugs. And for whatever reason, I've caught a ton of nice fish in the spring on gold minnow plugs. For reasons I don't know, that gold minnow plug seems to work very well. I remember up here at Collins Lake last year, I didn't have a gold plug in my box, and I just got some gold prismatic tape and put it on a Rapala, and it was an ugly tape job. The trout didn't care. They were jumping all over that in the afternoon, in the very late morning hours as well. And it was very effective. I'd put 6-7 fish in the boat every afternoon with that Rapala with that gold prismatic tape on it. Now, so far, I've talked a lot about trolling, but the bank guys, the bait guys, they also can enjoy very, very good action during the early spring. We got a big fish on.
No pressure, Ed.
No pressure, Ed.
That's okay. He'll get in.
Ed has got nerves of steel.
He's coming. You see him driving.
Boy, I'll tell you what, Ed. I am so ready for this. I got my net. It's only got a couple holes in it. Nothing to worry about.
Hey, I've had a salmon fall through the net. Yeah,
that's a big fish, Ed.
The whip teeth opened up and the fish fell through the hole. Yeah, I've never had that happen before.
That's the biggest fish we've had on it. There's an anchor back there, remember?
Pull him up front, Ed. Pull him up front.
He's taking off.
Oh, he's a big one.
He is. Man.
You saw the fish?
Yes.
Oh yeah, he's big. He's 6-7 pounds.
Take your time.
Now, he got him hooked good.
Take your time.
If he comes up back there and he gets hung on that net, grab that long net and get him.
Got it. Ah, shit. I wanted my phone to take a picture of this, a video of this, and I don't have it.
Here he comes. He's gonna come up.
All right, turn him. That's it. That net big enough.
Whoa!
Yeah, he's good.
That's a 10-pounder.
Yeah, that's.
Nice fish, Ed. That's why I had you book
That's
this
lake
trip.
trout. That's lake trout size.
Yeah. That's why I had you book this trip, because he was talking about catching fish like this.
Well done, Ed. That's a 10-pound rainbow. Caught that on power bait in, I don't know, 6 feet of water maybe. Collins Lake, we're getting it done.
It's nice.
Good job. You fought it like a pro. Again, the keys are keep your bait shallow, work that top 10 feet of the water column, and the standard offerings are going to work. Your dough baits, power bait, inflated worms, the Potski dough bait, those are all solid offerings. Now, if you're fishing from the bank, I would strongly encourage you to rig one rod up for bait fishing, rig another rod up for casting. You can either go with a spoon, maybe a Trigger Spoon Junior or a pinhead. Those cast very well. You can fan cast with those while you're waiting for a fish to come knocking on that bait. You also might consider going with one of my trigger boogers. You could team it with a weight. That works well. Use your action disc, but team it with a weight. Or you could team it with a clear water bobber. You can keep the action disc. You can get rid of the action disc. I'd probably get rid of the action disc in that situation. If you fill that bubble up half full of water, or more than half full, you can cast that thing a country mile. You know the fish are going to be near the surface, so you can cast it way out, cover a lot of water from a stationary point on the bank, again, while you're waiting for a fish to come knocking on that bait. I typically give a spot, when I'm bank fishing, give it 20, 30, 40 minutes. If you haven't had any action, move on. Really important, if you are mobile, if you're physically able, get yourself a good backpack, travel light, bring water, bring a snack, stay on the move until you find a productive area. And if you find a productive area and then all of a sudden the action slacks off, well, that's the time to think about packing your stuff back in the pack and making a move. And you don't have to move a great distance. Sometimes moving a couple 100 yards, even 100 yards, is all you need to do to get back into some fresh fish, some fish that are willing to go. Now, those are kind of the presentations, whether you're trolling or fishing off the bank. Let's talk about the fly in the ointment during early March, and that is the weather, okay? I stressed we were hitting the water on a clear sky day with very little wind, a day that was going to allow the sun to get on the water and start that water temperature rising. It's important. That's when you're going to have the best fishing. If you get out to the lake and you got overcast conditions, the temperature isn't going to rise as quickly, and you may not get that aggressive, late morning, afternoon bite. You may have to stay with those threaded worms all day long. If you're a bank angler, you may end up having to spend more time in areas to get a bite, just because the temperature is not going to be rising, and therefore the fish just aren't going to get as aggressive throughout the course of the day. The other thing that can really mess you up in early spring is wind. If you have big wind, a lot of times the fishing is just not going to be that great, because even if it's sunny, if you've got that wind, it causes the water to upwell. It creates current on the surface that kind of rolls in a spiral, and it pulls water up from deeper levels, and that deeper water is really cold. So effectively what the wind is doing is it's chilling the surface of the water, and that's the zone where you want to fish. That's where the most active fish are likely to be. But if you're out on a day when you've got big wind, particularly a big north wind, chances are you're in for challenging, fishing. You can still catch fish. You're going to have to go slow. You're really going to have to grind on areas where you're seeing fish on your sonar, or if you're bank fishing in areas where you strongly suspect there are fish. You're going to have to fish patient, and it's likely not going to be rip-roaring action. You're going to have to work for every strike. But again, you can absolutely catch fish. It's just going to be more challenging. Now, a lot of times in March, we'll get a storm that moves through the state or moves through the area. And sometimes we'll get 2 or 3 storms in a row that move through the area. That just, it messes everything up. It resets everything. It's going to drop the surface temperature down. It's going to cause the fish to become less active. It may cause some of the trout to move off the shore, back out over deeper water. It's just going to reset everything. Having said that, the storm is going to pass. You're going to get that period of north wind. And if you get stable weather, 3-4 days later, you're going to be right back into that early spring pattern again. The days are still long. The sun is still getting warmer. You just need the conditions to calm down long enough to start that temperature rising. When that temperature rises, the fish are going to get more active. They're going to have to eat more. It's going to make them a lot easier for you to catch. So that's kind of the big picture of spring fishing. To round out this video, I'm actually going to take the boat around to some different areas that I feel would offer a high percentage opportunity for you to catch spring fish, the kind of areas where I go and look for fish in the early spring. I'm not going to be out over the river channel running with my downriggers. That's where the water is going to be at its coldest, and I already know those deep marks are going to be very reluctant to move. They're going to be very reluctant to feed because they're out there, they're down deep, they're inactive. That's why they're there. They're there, they're chilling, and they want to be left alone. Places where you're going to find active fish, it's your shallow areas, it's your backwater areas. So I will fire up the boat here, and we will kind of get on the move, and we will seek out some of those areas, and I'll talk about each area where I stop, areas where I think it's a pretty high percentage area for early spring trout fishing success. Okay, I'm moving into key area number 1. I'm going to swivel the camera around. If you look out here, you can see we are in the back of a very long, narrow cove. If I swing around the full distance, you can see we're a long way from the river arm on the lake. We're way up in this cove, and that area right there, up in there, that is totally secluded. There's been no trollers up here. There's been no one bothering these fish. And winter trout, when they're feeling dormant, when they're just looking to not be bothered, they draw up into areas like these. And then as you start to get that transition from winter into springtime conditions, you start seeing the water temperature rise. And very often in areas like this, it'll start to rise before the rest of the lake does. These areas can be very good. Just moving up in here, 200 yards behind me, the surface temperature is about 47 degrees. Back here, it's like 48.6, 48.7. So significantly warmer. It might not sound like a lot to us, but these fish are cold-blooded, and that is significantly warmer water. So as winter gives way to spring, areas like this are going to get warmer faster, and the trout that have been holding back here all winter, guess what? They're going to get active sooner, and they're going to start feeding sooner. This is a prime area to hike into and bank fish. It's also a good area to pull into in a boat. You can either bait fish or you can fan cast from the boat. It's narrow and it dead ends, so you're not going to be able to troll here, and that's why this area doesn't get a lot of boat traffic. Most boaters, most guys that fish for trout from boats, they don't want to fan cast, but you can easily stand up front of your boat, ease in here, watch the sonar for rises in the bottom, because you don't want to hit anything. But you could easily work this fan casting, a woolly booger teamed with a water bobber, trigger spoon junior, something like that. Or you could anchor up, you could toss out some bait, and you could do some fan casting while you're anchored. Bottom line is, this is a key area. This is the kind of area where the trout like to spend their winter. It's sheltered, and you're very often going to find active fish in the backs of coves like these before you find active fish out in the main lake when you get into that transitionary period where winter conditions are giving way to spring conditions in the first week or two, or maybe even 3 weeks of March, depending on the weather conditions. Let's get after it. Let's go find another spot. We've been up in the river arm of the lake. I'm moving into another key area. I'm not going to slow the boat down. We're moving into a classic bottleneck. This can be good for trollers as well as bank fishermen. I'm going to turn the camera around. What we're looking at here is the area where the main lake meets the river arm, and that creates a bottleneck area. Anywhere you've got a bottleneck where a big expanse of water is necking down, it naturally concentrates the fish, and in the early spring, those fish are likely going to hug either bank. Good place to troll, also a good place to set up and bank fish off the bank. Lucy sees another boat, so she's got to bark at it. I'm going to push forward here, and we're going to get to another key area. I don't know how well I'm going to be able to illustrate this on the camera, but out behind me here, you see this section of shoreline. I am surrounded by really deep water. All this water out here is 80 to 100 feet deep, but that area right there, that is a submerged point, and more importantly, it's a big flat point. It comes out and it eventually drops into deep water, but what that amounts to is a big shallow flat adjacent to the safety and security of deep water. Classic place to find trout and other species of game fish in the early spring. You can find these areas with your sonar. You can also use a topo map, or if you have mapping on your sonar unit, you should seek these types of areas out, because when the weather's good, it allows fish that are holding in deeper water to move up on top of that flat to feed, to enjoy some warmer water, but they're very close to the security of the deeper water should the weather change, should a predator show up, stuff like that. And this particular submerged point, it's quite big. It's probably about 100 yards across, and it might be close to 100 yards long. When the lake's down, I've sat up there and ate lunch before and checked it out. It's studded with stumps, with boulders, and I've seen a lot of people set up here and bait fish and do very well, and I've done very well in the early spring, trolling across the top of it, pulling flies, pulling grubs, stuff like that. I'll typically start out, work along the edge. I remember one afternoon here, I was just tuning them up on the pink trout Trix. I was trolling along the edge, and then gradually I'll move up on top. I don't move up on top right away because I don't want to spook the fish up there and have them go, running out past the fish that are along the edge. I remember another day here in a little bit later, it was in April, but we had a big storm front come through. I was pre-fishing with a guy that was going to fish a trout tournament. His name was Andres. He's one of my good friends, good client, and we were just working this outer edge. And if I remember right, we had one rainbow about 8 pounds, another one about 6 pounds. Again, pink trout Trix worm, working that edge. The edge of a submerged point like this is always good, but in that early spring period, the top of it, the near shore part of it, can be especially good because that's where the water's going to warm up. But once again, those fish that are up there, they know they are very close to the security of deep water should that, weather change or a predator show up or a boat show up and scare them, something like that. Got a couple more spots to show you. Let's get moving. Now, if you've watched the channel anytime at all, you know this spot. I have landed, or my clients at least have landed, just some monsters back here. Right back here, we got a 13, we got a 12, right there, double hookup on a 6 and an 11, landed them both, and more fish over 8 pounds than I can remember. Here's the situation, I'll kind of pan around here. This is a big mud bottom bay. Out here in the center part where the boat is right now, you know, it's 50, 60 feet deep right now. But when you get up towards shore there, it gradually climbs up. It's not real steep back there. So you get big expanses of water that are 12 feet deep, and then 10 feet deep, 8 feet deep, 6 feet deep. Guess what? Those fish are able to drift back into deeper water when the conditions aren't favorable, and then they move up on that mud flat when it's time to feed or when they want to get warmer and they want to get into that warmer water, because it does. That's fully exposed to the sun all day long. It warms up quite a bit. I've seen the temperature back there swing as much as 5 degrees on the surface on a sunny, still day. So this has always been a very good big fish spot. And I'm going to move in a little bit closer and show you a key area within the hot area. This whole back of this bay back here, this whole area can be really, really good. I've caught a lot of big fish back there, and literally hundreds and hundreds, maybe thousands of, you know, keeper-sized trout back there. But I'm going to move in tight to this corner, and I'm going to show you a key area within the kind of the key area. Okay, I've moved in a little bit closer. I call this spot right here, this trophy corner, because what I do in my big pontoon boat is I'll line up along that bank. I'll troll along the whole back of the bay, and I'll keep the boat in anywhere from, you know, 8 to 12 feet of water. As shallow as I dare, you know, us boaters, we're kind of chicken. We don't want to hit anything. Well, as soon as I start coming over here, this is a creek channel and a cove associated with it. There's a lot of brush in there. There's a lot of rocks in there. And there's a whole bunch of game fish in there. So what I'll do in the powerboat is I'll make that turn and I'll skirt along the outer edge of that cove. This is where we got the 13-pounder. This is where we got the 12-pounder. But this area back here, back in this cove, back over there, that's an area we don't really fish out of the powerboat because there's stuff in there that'll break your motor. But out of the kayak or off the bank, that is just an absolute honey hole, a super productive key area. Not only are you back here on this large flat that tends to attract fish, it's adjacent to the deeper water, it's very attractive, but you have a natural river channel from a seasonal creek that leads right up into that maze of boulders and brush and stuff like that. Trout, bass, channel cats, giant bluegill, they follow that creek bed like a road. They go right back up in there. I have absolutely smoked them up in there, pulling flies and Yozuri El minnows from my kayak. If you were to hike up there and bait fish off the bank or fan cast off the bank, you would find exceptional action at times. This is just, no matter what lake you're at, this is just the kind of area you want to seek out and you want to work, because it's an area that has it all. It has the deep sheltering water out here. It has the mud flat that warms up. That's where the fish go and feed. When that water warms up, it gets the plankton going, and then the minnows get going, and then the predators, the trout, the bass, the channel cats, they move up into that shallow water to feed. And that creek channel is a natural corridor that leads fish right up into a cove where no one trolls, few people boat. It's secluded, it's safe, it's quiet, it's warm, it's jam-packed with feed. It is an absolute honey hole, one of the best areas on this entire lake. When you find areas like this on various lakes, mark them down in your mental map, or mark the waypoints on your chart so you'll always be able to find them later on the next time you visit the lake. So those are the key areas that I look for in the early part of the spring. And you can see what they all have in common, okay? They're all shallow water areas that warm up before the deeper water areas. Most of them are adjacent to that deep sheltering water because early in the spring, those fish are going to move up, and then when the weather goes bad, they're going to move back down. And they don't want to have to travel a mile to do that. They want to be able to swim out and drop down, swim up, move up where it's warm and comfortable to feed. Those are really good areas. The other common denominator in a lot of these spots is that they're kind of off the beaten path. If you can find a secluded area that isn't being hit by a lot of boats, a lot of trollers, that boating activity does scare the fish, especially when they're lethargic, when they're up there in the wintertime and they're just focusing on trying to survive with a very low metabolism. They just want to sit there and not do anything. They don't want boats bothering them. They don't want to be scared. They want to be able to move into deeper water very easily, move up into shallow water very easily. They do have to feed in the wintertime when they're very, very cold, but they don't have to feed a lot. The less they move, the less they have to feed. And areas that offer them that easy, access to deep water, areas where they're not being spooked and forced to move by boats running through shallow water, are very attractive to them. They will pull back in these kind of areas. They'll spend the winter there. And like I said, up there in that dead end cove, they will start to come to life in the back of those coves before the trout do in the rest of the lake. A lot of times you can get in on some very good action in some very isolated areas. You got to think trout fishing. You got to find these key areas. You got to think about the conditions, think about the needs of the trout, and very often that will put you in the right place at the right time. Don't be confounded by the early spring season. Learn to exploit it, and you'll be yelling fish on. If you like this kind of content, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell notification. You'll always know when I'm here talking fishing. If you're looking for any of the gear I mentioned, catchamerica.com will hook you up with what you need. We'll get it out to you fast, and you will be on the water yelling fish on before you know it. Anyway, I'm Kel Kellogg. I'm here to help you catch more and bigger trout. I know this will help you as we move into spring. I'll catch you next time right here on YouTube, guys.